The box itself, my parents, who were both Umkhonto we Sizwe activists, was their medico, right? The medico is the box of a first aid kit, and they were supported by a number of healthcare professionals who would bring them medicine and all the stuff they would need in the case of like needing to do whatever. They weren't able to walk in and out of a hospital like normal people, being Umkhonto we Sizwe fighters. So this box was then taken into prison when my mum and I were imprisoned, or when I was imprisoned with my mum. And there was a point where I was removed from her and I was placed into a place of safety. I mean, it's the opposite, a children's home, and I refused to eat. And I don't know if that was on purpose as a hunger strike, but I'd like to believe so.
How old were you then?
I was in my first year. I was a year, but I hadn't ever met another child in a normative way. I was only raised up until that point in the detachment, and I was totally breastfed. There was no formula that I knew how to accept. So myself in this place of safety, stripped from my mum. The state security then recorded me crying and played it back to her in her interrogation. And they said, "Look what a terrible mother you are. Tell us what you did. Look at your son. Look at these cries." And that's also where the title of Crying for Justice comes in for, is that I imagine that those tapes exist, that those tapes that were used of me crying to try and break her in interrogation still exist. And potentially that is like the strongest artwork I'll ever make, right? So when I was removed from her, there were protests in town for me to be removed back to her and for us to be released. And that broke the system, and I was put back with her. But as she said, when she received me back, I was skin and bones. I was, with gastrointestinal problems, and she believed I had been poisoned. So what she got is she kept, all the years, she kept these medicines. This is like incredibly strong gastrointestinal medicine that was basically used to bring me back from the point of death to living. And that she kept, 1989, 1990, kept as thinking that she would have to use it as an exhibit in a court to prove why the apartheid government had actually killed me by poisoning me. And how many years later? 30 years later, it's now still a piece of evidence, but it's in a museum. And I've put this glass vitrine around it to emphasize its preciousness and emphasize emphasize the need to keep bringing up the past. Because this piece here and the book of their life stories, Voices from the Underground, are placed together in an exhibition that is the first I've had in 10 years in Cape Town, and all of this is like the most unresolved stuff, right? I'm noted as one of the youngest victims of gross human rights abuse by the TRC. But only people that went to the TRC can be recognized as victims. And I didn't go to the TRC, so I've got my own fight to take up, and it's a big fight. And actually, this object here speaks into that in such a strong and profound way. So I was quite honored to be able to, for my mom to have loaned it to me, and then to be able to put it in this exhibition form to be learned about.